Hello everyone, this is Reza Dorrani. In today's video, I will show you how to export Power Apps data to Excel. We will build a reusable Power Automate flow that we will call from our Power Apps, send data to the flow. The flow will create that Excel file in a CSV format and send the link back to the Power App. So the user will get the Excel file downloaded in Power Apps. So let's get started with the video, but first, my introduction. In my Power App, I have a very simple screen here that has a gallery, the data for which is coming from a collection. And as part of this collection, I have data related to devices. In my case, I have the ID of the device, the manufacturer name, processor information, storage, title, and type. The gallery showcases all that information in the form of controls. Now, in order for me to export this data to an Excel file in a CSV format, I would need to take the help of Power Automate. And in order for me to leverage Power Automate, I would need to trigger a flow from Power Apps. And for that, I will first go ahead and insert a button. I have called this button Export to Excel. In order for me to call a flow from the button control, if I head over to the Action tab on the top, we have an option here called Power Automate. And this will list out all the flows that have a trigger associated with Power Apps. In my case, I will create this flow from scratch. So I will click on Create a New Flow. This now will open up the Power Automate experience for me and take me to the templates that are made available for us. Now in my case, I want to create my own flow that triggers from Power Apps and start from scratch. So for that, I will head over to My Flows, go to New Flow, and create an instant cloud flow. One of the triggers in the instant cloud flow is Power Apps. So I will select Power Apps. I will give my flow a name, and I have named this flow Export to Excel. I will click Create. This now will create the flow with the Power Apps trigger assigned. Now, next step, I would like Power Apps to send data to Power Automate so I can create that Excel file. So for that, I will add a new step. I will use the compose action, which is related to the data operation. I will rename the compose action to content. And for the input, I will head over to the option here to add dynamic content. Bear in mind, I have the experimental feature turned on for Power Automate, which shows these new expression options. So on the top right, if you see right here, I can go to Settings, View All Power Automate Settings, and I have the experimental features turned on. So in the inputs, I will go to Dynamic Content and select this option called Ask in Power Apps. Now, when I select this option, it will create an input parameter for this specific flow, and the name of that parameter will be related to the name of my action. In my case here, my compose action, which I have called as content. So I will click Ask in Power Apps, and this now creates an input parameter. When Power Apps will call flow, it will ask for that parameter. Now that I have this part of my flow built out, I will go ahead and save this flow. So my flow is ready to go. Now, in order for me to test this flow has to be triggered from Power Apps. So back to my Power App, if I select my Export to Excel button and once again go to Action and Power Automate, this time my new flow would be listed right here. So here's my flow called Export to Excel. I will select this, and this will now add the association of this flow to my button control. And right here on the onSelect property of my button, here is the association to that flow, which is my export to Excel flow dot run. Now this is expecting a parameter, and this parameter is nothing but that input parameter that I created in my flow. Now this is where I need to pass my data, that is my collection data in this case, to flow. A collection in Power Apps is tabular information. Flow understands JSON, JavaScript object notation. The beauty about Power Apps is that there is a function called JSON, and as part of this function, I can provide a data structure to it so that it converts it to JSON. And that data structure could be tables, records, or any primitive value types. In our case, a collection is nothing but tabular data. So I can directly provide that collection data right here. And you can also define the format to be used in the JSON conversion. Now, in my case, I will go ahead and use the format include binary data. I will close my function. If I head over to data sources, you will see the association of that flow in the data section in Power Apps right here. Now, if I go ahead and preview my app, if I click on export to Excel, Power Apps will trigger my flow. And to confirm this, if I head back to my flow and go to the flow details page, I will see that my flow just got triggered. If I select this, this will now show me the details of my flow run. So my flow got triggered from Power Apps. Here is the input parameter that came in, and here is the value that I stored in my compose action, and this is the data that I received from Power Apps. And this data is in JSON format. If I look at show raw inputs, the data is being represented right now as a string. However, it is in JSON format. Now, in order for me to convert this to actual JSON so I can work with the data in flow, what I have to do is this. I will go ahead and add a new step, search for data operation, select the data operation, and one of the actions here is creating a CSV table. So I will select create CSV table, and the first parameter is from. Now from expects an array of values. My content is that collection data, which is nothing but an array of values. I have sent it in JSON format, but when it comes from Power Apps to flow, it comes in the form of string. So I need to actually convert it to JSON. So for that, I will head over to the expression editor and write a very simple expression. The expression is called JSON, and the value in this function would be the output of my compose action, which is called content. So I'll select this, click out, and that's my expression right here, which is converting the data in the content compose action into JSON that I can leverage so that Flow can create a CSV table for me right here. So let's go ahead and test this flow. Select automatically with a recently used trigger, and I will rerun the flow directly this time and test it in Power Automate. Now when this flow reruns, once again, content is going to give me the data in that string format. However, right here, I have converted it first into JSON. So if we look at the input here is now converted into actual JSON. So here is that array of data that I have right here, which is all my data in that collection from Power Apps. Now, if you look at the output here, the output is nothing but in CSV format. You will note that all the properties of my JSON object, device ID, manufacturer, processor, and so on and so forth, they are provided right here as the header. And then I have all my data points in individual rows, all of these in CSV format. All I need to do now is create an Excel file. And to create a file, I would have to define its location where I would like to create this. You can utilize any location of your choice. In my case, for this scenario, I will use OneDrive. So I will use the user's OneDrive to create that Excel file that the user just requested. Create a new step. Search for the action create file in OneDrive for business. I will select this, and this now gives me the option to create a file. Now it's asking me for the folder path. If I select the folder option right here and select root, This will now create the file at the root level in the user's OneDrive who would be running the Power App. Please note, when a flow is called from Power Apps, all the actions in the flow would run under the context of the user who is running the Power App. So even though right now when I'm creating this flow and configuring it against my OneDrive, when a user runs the app, all of these actions in the flow would run under their account. Now my folder path is the root. So in the root, which is under my files, it will go ahead and create that file. If you would like this to be created in its own folder, so you can even do that by defining a folder path. So in my case right here, I can actually type the name of the folder as well. And here's the path that I have defined: export Excel Power App. That means when it goes to create this file, if this folder exists, it will add the file in this folder. If it does not, it will create a folder with this name. Next step is the name of the file. Now here I would want to ensure that the name of my file is unique so that whenever the user executes this flow, it does not go and replace the previous file. So for that, if I head over to expressions, I can define an expression here called UTC now, which basically gives me the current date and time in UTC format. This is guaranteed to always be unique. And if I click out, this has put that expression right here. So here's the name of my file. The extension is .csv. You can add any pattern that you want to your file name right here. And next step is the file content. The content of the file, the dynamic content value, will come from the output of the create CSV table action. And this will go ahead and create that file for me in my OneDrive. Next step, once the file is created, I need the link of that file because I would like to open that file directly in Power Apps. When user clicks that button to export to Excel, the flow should get called, the flow should create the file, and the flow should launch that file in Power Apps. So I need to send that link of the file directly back to Power Apps right here in my flow. For that, I can go and add a new step. And in the OneDrive for Business connector, there is an action here called create share link. So I'm going to select this. The first property it is asking for is the unique identifier of the file. So if I click here and under dynamic content, the create file action has that unique identifier, and that's the ID property. So I will select this. The link type, I will create a direct link to that file, and the link scope, I will change this to organization. So this will create the link directly to that file that just got created in my OneDrive. And now finally, I need to send this link back to Power Apps. So for that, I will go to new step and search for respond to Power Apps. There is an action called respond to a Power App or flow. I will select this. I will add an output property of type text. I will call this file link. And in the value for this output property, under dynamic content from the create share link action, we get the web URL, which is the URL that points to that file that just got created. And this now completes my flow. So I will go ahead and click on save. Now, if I was to go ahead and test this flow once again from a previous run, you will note that you will receive this error. And the error says that it could not find any valid connection for connection reference name shared underscore OneDrive for business. The reason for this is I'm trying to use a previous flow run to re-trigger my flow. But as part of that flow run, there was no connection to OneDrive for business. I just added the OneDrive for business actions to my flow. Now, if I head back to Power Apps, and if I click on export to Excel, and if I go back to the edit mode of the app, I will receive an error again. And once again, it's that same error that I saw in flow. Now, the way to fix this is go back to the data tab in Power Apps, remove the association of your flow, go back to your export to Excel button. You can make sure that you copy your code. So I will copy the onSelect function action and go back to Power Automate And now once again, click on export to Excel so it reassociates it back with your Power App. Now that it reassociates it back, you will see that the function is played out again. So you have to again enter the input parameter. That's why I copied it before, so I can just paste it back again. This time, if I preview the app and select this button, if I head back in edit mode, I do not receive any error. If I go to the flow run history and if I refresh, I will see that my flow got executed. If I select this, this will show me the details of my flow run right here. And if I go to my OneDrive, I have a folder created right here which says export Excel Power App. That's the name of the folder that I created. And if I select this, I get that CSV file right here, the name for which is UTC now, because that's the expression I used. And if I select this, this will be an Excel file which has data in CSV format right here, the device ID, manufacturer name, basically all the information that I passed from my Power App collection directly to Power Automate. Now, as part of my flow, I'm responding back to Power App. So in my Power App, when I trigger this flow, I will need the response back when this flow is triggered. So for that, I can create a very simple variable. I can call this var file link. So I can set a variable, trigger this flow, and at the end of the flow run action, if I just put a dot, IntelliSense will guide me through this. If there are any output properties, it would be exposed right here. My property is called file link, so I can select this and I can close this. Next step would be for me to launch that Excel file right here in Power Apps. And for that, we have a function called launch. So I will select the launch function, and all I need for this is the address, and that is stored in that variable that I just created called var file link. Now if I go ahead and preview the app and click on export to Excel, this now triggers the flow. The flow creates that file, sends the response back. So right here, as you can see at the bottom, it has downloaded that file, that CSV file experience for me right here. And if I select this file, here is that Excel file that got created for me. Now this flow that we just created is actually dynamic in nature, because no matter what data I send to it, as long as that data has a collection of records or an array of records or a table in Power Apps basically, and that too in JSON format, the flow will be able to handle it. So let's try and test this out with different scenarios now. So here's my export to Excel button. So I'll just go and copy this. Now as part of this app, I have a home screen here that shows me data from a SharePoint list. So here's a SharePoint list called Work Progress Tracker. And this gallery has certain filters. So I can even filter data here. So show me all my work progress tasks that are completed. So if I select completed, I only have 2 tasks that are completed. So it's showing me only the completed tasks. So now if I want to export this data dynamically as the user is filtering, what if I want to export this to Excel? So for that, let's say I just paste that button that I copied from the other screen right here. Let me place it right here at the bottom. So export to Excel. Now all I have to change here is the information of that collection that I'm passing. Now this gallery is a gallery of tasks, and this is connected to my data source, which is my SharePoint list. And if I look at the data here, it's in tabular format, and this is all the information that is provided right here. Now one of the simplest options here is I will copy the name of my gallery, and in my JSON function, my data would be the gallery tasks dot all items. Now the moment I put the function gallery tasks dot all items, I get an error that says the JSON function cannot serialize tables, objects with a nested property called rectangle2 of type control. Now as part of this gallery, I have certain controls, and the JSON function here is not able to serialize those controls into JSON format. So for this, all we have to do here is, along with include binary data, can add an ampersand and include another format, which is JSON format dot ignore unsupported types. So any type that is unsupported, just ignore that. And now I don't receive any error. Now if I go ahead and preview this app and click export to Excel, once again, my flow will get called. I will have that CSV file available right here. It's downloaded it for me. So if I click open file, here is my file with all the data which is filtered as part of my gallery. Now if we look at this, I have the assign to column, which is like the people picker column in SharePoint. That's the format in which it returns the data. If I look at the category value, this is a choice column in SharePoint. It is giving me the data, but it is giving me the results in the format in which SharePoint returns the data. Now, although the data is available, the format is not quite right. For text fields, I do get the data accurately. However, there are many other columns here that maybe I would not want as part of my exported Excel file. So for this, we have to do a little bit of work. Back to my export to Excel function. Now, right before this action, we can go ahead and write the following function, which is for all. That means for all the data in gallery tasks.all items, go ahead and collect this information in a new collection, which is my collection of data exported. That's the name of my collection I'm providing here. And now I need to provide the record. And right here is where I have to provide the information of my record. So I will open the curly braces. And let's say in my case, I would like to pass certain pieces of information. Maybe I would like to have a column called title, the value for which I will put the formula this record dot title. Next, maybe I would like to pass the created by information. So I can create my own column here called created by. And I will use this record dot created by dot display name. And I can do this for every property that I would like to pass to my Excel file. And lastly, I will pass the progress information of my data from SharePoint. So I'll add a title here called progress. And this will come from this record dot progress, which is a choice column in SharePoint. So I have to do dot value. And now I can close my item. I can close the collect function and I can close the for all loop. Now when this button is clicked, this will loop through all the items that are available in the gallery which are already filtered and collect that data in a collection. And this time the collection will only have 3 pieces of information and the column names would be title, created by, and progress. Next, I will pass this collection to the JSON function right here. And once the flow is called and the file is launched, I will go ahead and clear this collection. So I'll go to clear and clear this collection. Now if I go ahead and preview the app, let's say this time I pick the status in progress. So I have 3 records that are in progress. Let's go ahead and click on export to Excel. Here is the file that got exported. If I open this file, here are my 3 records and here are those 3 column names that I passed. So I can choose which columns I want to pass from Power Apps to Flow. Now let's say I head over to a completely different app. In my case here, I have a Power App here that tracks help desk information, ticketing information. Now let's say I would like to add that export to Excel feature right here. Well, for that, I will go ahead and insert a button. I have called it export to Excel. Can even add an icon here and use the download icon. So when the user selects this or the user selects the button, it will go ahead and download the data. Now for the button here, if I head over to action and Power Automate, once again, this will list out all the flows that have the Power Apps trigger. My case, here's my flow, export to Excel. It's reusable. I can reuse this across all my apps. So I will add this to my Power App here. And once again, once the association is made with your app, it's asking me to provide the input. In my scenario here, I have a gallery called the tickets gallery. So I will once again execute those same steps. I have my collection created. Now when the export to Excel flow will run, I need the data, which should be in JSON format. So I will call the JSON function, pass my collection of data, close my function. The link that comes back from flow, I can even avoid using the variable. I can use the launch function directly here. And from the run action, the variable that is returned from flow is called file link. So I can just directly launch that right here. And I will apply the same formula to this download icon on select as well. So if I go ahead and click on download, once again, the same flow that I created earlier gets called. It creates that Excel file. And if I open the file right here, I have my data available right here. And these are all my tickets. If I filter my data in my gallery, so let's say I would like to look at all the tickets related to the marketing department where the request type is business card. Now if I go ahead and export this data to Excel as well, and here is my exported file, which just has that one record information right here. Watch out for my next part in which I will show you how you can export the data in a PDF format. And once we launch the PDF file, the user can go ahead and print the data as well. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching.